Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All Things Amyloid podcast, where we feature patients, caregivers, and clinicians who discuss amyloidosis, a rare and incurable disease. Amyloidosis occurs when the body builds up abnormal amounts of misfolded amyloid protein, which can lead to serious and life threatening outcomes. I'm your host, Mackenzie, an amyloidosis patient and founder of Mackenzie's Mission. Our goal for this podcast is to raise awareness and share firsthand what it's like to live with this disease, to care for those affected by it, and to treat it. We hope this leads to earlier diagnosis and start of treatment, which will improve patient lives. Amyloid diseases are often thought of as separate conditions, from Alzheimer's to certain heart or kidney disorders, but they all share a common culprit: amyloid proteins that misfold and accumulate in the body. In this episode, we'll explore why understanding the common thread across these diseases could change the way we raise awareness, approach research, and develop treatments. Listeners will gain a fresh perspective on a group of diseases that affects millions of people, often quietly, and why seeing the bigger picture matters. Today's guest is Dr. Michael Dobbs, Associate Dean for Clinical Affairs and Chair of Clinical Neurosciences at Florida Atlantic University's Schmidt College of Medicine. A distinguished neurologist, author, and researcher, he has led pioneering efforts in stroke care, medical education, and amyloidosis research while nurturing entrepreneurship and teaching across diverse disciplines. Welcome, Dr. Dobbs, to our podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
I'm so happy to be here, Mackenzie. Thank you for including me.
Of course, I've been really looking forward to our discussion about amyloid proteins and how they can be associated with more than just amyloidosis. And I think many folks, whether they're in healthcare or the general public, would be surprised to learn this. So, to get the discussion going, what exactly are amyloid diseases and why do they show up in such different ways throughout the body?
Amyloid diseases have that common thread, Mackenzie, as you mentioned, of protein formation. We think about proteins as building blocks, things that we take in perhaps for nutrition that then create our bones and muscles, but our own body creates proteins in our cells. And think of amyloid as a misfolded protein. A lot of different naturally formed proteins can start to get misfolded or mismanufactured if you think of our body as a factory that makes proteins. And these amyloid proteins don't work. We all form them. Yeah, I form them myself, even now. But what happens is that they get cleared. They get cleared out from the body, and we don't worry about them. They don't cause disease until they overaccumulate and or the clearance system fails. Then they accumulate in organs like the heart, perhaps, the kidneys, the brain, such as with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and other brain diseases. And then they cause problems. The problems are basically dysfunction of those organs. Happens in more than one organ often, which confuses physicians as we try to figure out what's going with a patient. The problem with diagnosing amyloid related diseases is that we don't always think about them when we're seeing a patient in front of us.
Yeah, that certainly is a huge problem, and I think one of the biggest problems we face right now, we're getting incredible treatments, but it's often they they aren't as helpful if we can't really pinpoint and identify that disease to begin with.
That's true. Diagnosis is the name of the game.
Yeah. So, explain to us a little bit more how the misfolding of amyloid proteins connect these seemingly unrelated diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and amyloidosis, and I'm sure many more diseases that we don't talk about.
Sure. The way that I like to think of this is sort of as a cardboard box factory. If the proteins that we're making are cardboard boxes in our factory, which is our body, most of the time we put out good cardboard boxes, but occasionally in a cardboard box factory, a box is going to come out that doesn't close right or is just threaded paper. We can deal with a few of those. But when the apparatus, in our case, the cells, start to form too much shredded paper, it accumulates When the sanitation system fails to get it out of the way, it gums up the whole works and it causes that disease. For the heart, as an example, it accumulates and causes the walls to thicken, which causes heart failure, which then ultimately causes death. With Alzheimer's disease, amyloid and other proteins and other problems also in Alzheimer's disease, but amyloid accumulates in and around the brain, which causes us to have slowed thinking and impaired memory. You can see overlap in multiple diseases as well that really, or in multiple systems, I should have said, with these amyloid diseases that actually cause dysfunction in more than one part of the body.
Yeah. And, I think interestingly, shifting from kind of the biology of it to the healthcare setting and then kind of the what we see as clinicians, you know, why do we why do you think the public and even healthcare providers often overlook the bigger picture of these amyloid diseases in general?
First of all, I think it's the name.
Mm,
These diseases have different names. If you think cardiac amyloidosis, Alzheimer's disease, cerebral amyloid angiopathy, these are all amyloid diseases, but they have different names, and I don't think that really allows people to make the link.
mhm,
I'm not kidding you. This occurs among physicians. Physicians get rather siloed and focused on their own organ area. A cardiologist isn't thinking a whole lot about Alzheimer's disease. A neurologist isn't thinking that much about kidney failure. We're not really trained to do that. Now, there is one area of medicine where I think they've got it right in the way that they're thinking, and that is cancer. Cancer is kind of like amyloid diseases. Cancer affects millions of people, has common causes of cellular overgrowth, and it manifests in different organs, different systems. But you have cancer doctors. It would be interesting and probably helpful to amyloid diseases. We may see this in the future if we had amyloid doctors that
mhm.
really were focused on the treatment of amyloid diseases across multiple systems.
Yeah, so almost its own specialty.
It could be, it really could be, especially as we're getting now able to have treatments for these diseases. A lot of the history of it was kind of almost like it was futile,
Mm,
where you would search and search and search for a diagnosis and then find, oh, it's an amyloid disease. Can't do anything about that. And that's how it was really when I started medicine, just not that long ago, really.
mm,
But now we do have treatments that are prolonging people's lives. I think, McKinsey, we're going to see some interesting things happen from this. It's great that people's lives are being prolonged and they're living longer with these diseases. But I think we're also going to see more overlap and manifestation as people in other organ systems as people live longer with, let's just say,
mhm.
cardiac amyloidosis, live longer with Alzheimer's disease. You're going to see amyloid problems in other organs in these patients as well.
Interesting, almost like things we just haven't been able to see yet because people haven't been living long enough for us to find those. Very interesting. I think that'd be a great place to get to, and
Um,
certainly will create new issues, but we can deal with those when we get there.
I
But
hope so.
yeah, absolutely. So I think this ties into our next question, and that's how could thinking of amyloid diseases as a system rather than an isolated disease accelerate research, improve our treatments, our diagnostic approaches, kind of all those aspects of medicine?
I'll go big on this one. The National Institutes of Health, which funds an awful lot of our scientific research, has different institutes. As an example, the National Institute on Aging, the National Cancer Institute, the National Institute on Neurological Disorders, Stroke. Wouldn't it be cool if the National Institutes of Health actually said, hey, millions of people have this manifestation of disease that's related to protein misfolding, amyloid protein. Why don't we create a National Institute on Amyloid Diseases? That would allow physicians and scientists who are focused on amyloid diseases to have a place where they could send their research proposals and perhaps get more research dollars and better outcomes from the work they're doing on amyloid diseases, rather than having to say, oh, I've got to pigeonhole this into the National Institute on Aging because it's around Alzheimer's disease. Or, well, I'm focusing on the heart and the brain. Where do I put this? Where do I send this proposal? It sounds like it wouldn't be that big of a problem, but it is. You have to really, as a scientist, tailor your proposal to the place where you're sending it, or it's very unlikely to get funded.
Yeah.
So that's with the research. With public awareness, I would say this. If I had one thing I would say to patients, if you're having problems across more than one organ of the body, just as an example, maybe you're having some shortness of breath or trouble with fainting and dizziness, and you have some protein that's in your urine that your doctor has said, don't know why that is. That's strange. Or maybe you're also having, or alternatively, having difficulty with feeling in your hands and feet, and your doctor says, that might be a neuropathy, some nerve damage. Wonder why. Say, hey, could it be an amyloid disease? That will click in their brain to get them thinking about it and get the right testing and perhaps get the diagnosis that you might have and the treatment that will make a difference. I can't stress to you enough. As physicians, we don't know everything. We know an awful lot about our niche area,
Mm.
but we don't know everything. And when we're back in medical school, we're not taught, except in our very first classes, to really think about the body as a whole, but rather it's divided up by these organ systems. So a disease like amyloid that spans across multiple organs, it's just really hard sometimes for physicians to focus and figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a great point, and people know their specialty extraordinarily well. And you don't always think everything's connected. And sometimes it's not, which I think also makes it a little bit more challenging when a lot of the times symptoms aren't connected, but every once in a while they are. And when they are, like you
Mhm.
said, amyloid could be driving that.
Amyloid diseases, I'm not going to quote statistics here because I don't have them, but it's one of those disease types where you're likely to go to multiple doctors before you get a diagnosis.
Hmm.
Someone
Yeah.
will finally figure it out.
Yeah. We hear over and over and over again from, patients in the amyloidosis community that it took them 5, 10 physicians um,
Right.
before they're able to get an answer. And a lot of that comes down to just continuing to raise awareness around amyloid diseases and things like the NIH, like you mentioned, having a kind of an amyloid hub could really help kind of change the way we think about medicine and could have trickle down effects.
You heard it right here on McKinsey's podcast for the first time.
Absolutely. We'll take credit. I'll take it. Well, listen, in closing, I think you touched on this a little bit, but if there's anything else you want to add, what is it that patients or families or even the general public can do to help better recognize amyloid diseases and help support the awareness efforts around them?
Talk about them
Mm,
and stop talking about these diseases only in their little niche, as in, oh, they've got cardiac amyloidosis. And think about them as they relate to each other.
mm,
We're going to see more and more overlap. I don't know if that's really. Part of the reason these don't get much attention is because they're given artificial niches, artificial little silos. These are
mm.
all the same disease, basically. It's just manifesting in different organs. We've got to think about not cardiac amyloidosis as a few thousand cases every year, but rather millions of people have amyloid diseases. Showing that it's a lot of people that are affected from this gets more attention.
Mm.
If you get a chance to talk to your legislators about it, talk to them. Talk to them about what a serious problem amyloid diseases is.
You make such an interesting point. I'd never heard of amyloidosis before I got the diagnosis, and I'm sure every other patient will tell you the same thing. But everyone's heard of Alzheimer's. Everyone's heard of Parkinson's, right? And I know there are more amyloid diseases, and I'm not throwing in there, but exactly to your point, if we talked about them as a group, a lot of the kind of lesser known amyloid diseases might benefit from that.
Hey, McKenzie, did you know that you remember mad cow disease?
Yes,
Did you know it's an amyloid disease?
I did not.
I'll bet you that a lot of neurologists don't know that.
Yeah, the prions in the brain or something like that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I did not know that. Okay, so we've added mad cow disease to our list of amyloid
Really, I
diseases.
mean those prion type diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, but it's the same basic pathology.
Yeah, that's super interesting. See,
Yeah,
so many good nuggets in here for everyone to really take away from. But I want to thank you, Dr. Dobbs, for joining us today. I think our discussion is really enlightening for our listeners to help really understand the bigger picture that's around amyloid diseases. I wasn't aware that there was a bigger picture until, having discussions like this with experts like you. And it's so exciting to see how our knowledge has just exploded over the last decade, learning more about treatments, getting answers for patients, and really helping to connect these amyloid related diseases in the future can really shape the way medical education is structured, the way we practice healthcare, and it really is a truly exciting time for our community. So thank you so much.
really happy that I could help, and always happy to do that for you. You're doing really great work.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the All Things Amyloid podcast. If you find our podcast informative, please follow and share it with others. If you want to learn more about the work we're doing at Mackenzie's Mission, please visit mm713.org. We'd also like to thank AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, Alexion Pharmaceuticals, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, and Bridge Biopharma for their sponsorship to help raise awareness about amyloidosis. We hope you stay tuned for future episode drops. Thanks for listening.